Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is John. I'm a full-time eBay reseller based in Melbourne, Australia. This is part 4 of our weekly theme exploring why sales are slow. In part 1, we looked at how pricing is oftentimes an acceptable range for buyers. If you price above this range or below this range, buyers are put on alert and you run the risk of them hesitating when they buy, and that leads to slow sales. The second part, we looked at how not all categories perform the same on eBay. Some perform really badly, and there are some items where buyers just don't think of going to eBay for in the first place, like groceries. In part 3, we looked at how buyer loyalty, repeat buying, how building that into your business helps you to make it through slow sale periods. Because when a buyer enjoys dealing with you and you give them products that are curated specifically for their, target demographic, they don't want to replace you. Okay, it's very hard for a buyer, difficult for a buyer to replace you when they enjoy dealing with you and you already meet their need. So, part 4, we're going to look at the quality of your listings, and more specifically, how eBay being a regularly changing platform, because they keep wanting to make it easier for the buyer to spend money with you. Think of eBay Plus, free shipping. Think of it could be a clunky change, but it's all aimed at helping the buyer to buy faster. Now we've got 24 photos instead of 12 photos. Think about more item specifics. Think about, what else can we think about? Think about the various promotions that you can apply for your business, right? eBay keeps doing these things because they want the buyer to buy quickly. The faster they buy, the faster we get paid, the faster they get paid. Sure, eBay may take a cut out of every little tool that they give us, but we still get paid, as opposed to getting paid more but less often. You do the math, right? It's business specific. So what that means is when you have a changing platform, you need to be up to date. You don't want to be an out-of-date seller. An out-of-date seller looks a bit like this. People who still have sharp contrasting font colors in their description. People who don't use all 12 photos, let alone the 24 photos, where value can be had by maximizing those photos. If buyers of a particular category of item discover that they can have greater peace of mind by having 24 photos available to them, and they see a listing that only has 12 or a listing only has 2, if quality is what they're after and certainty is what they're after, they will buy from the seller with 24 photos. If a buyer is a buyer that is used to not seeing unnecessary text in descriptions, and they get to a listing where the description states everything, every single fear, every single insecurity of the seller, about not being scared, about buyers being sure, about making sure the buyer doesn't have any buyer's remorse. You've seen those descriptions before. The buyer goes, nah, I don't want to deal with this seller at all, man. I feel like things can go bad for me as the buyer if I buy from this seller. They will go to a seller that just lists what is necessary, lists the item with descriptions that state what is needed, and rely on the policies of the platform. The returns policy is stated under the price. The postage is stated under the price. eBay has built the platform for the buyer to notice it all in that window. There is no need to rant on about it in the description just to cover yourself as a seller. The buyer will buy from that seller who understands that. I want to go back to the photos part, because the photos, I think I have an example that would make a lot of sense. So Transformers, for those of you who don't know Transformers, they keep revising them and revising the designs of them such that if a person wants to buy a particular character from a particular era, they will actually pay sometimes 2 to 3 times brand new pricing to 2 to 3 times brand new pricing to buy it secondhand, as long as it is in brand new condition. Transformers also are quite complex to transform, in the sense that if you open them up from the vehicle mode into the pre-assembled robot mode, they have all these clips that need to go together, right? And if they don't clip properly, the figurine just flops over. You put up the hands and the hands will go like this. Or if you pose them leaning forward too much, they'll just go like that. So having 24 photos to take a shot of every single clipping point provides a lot of peace of mind. So if I think about a figurine, right, that can go for $10 in shitty condition to $120, back when you had 12 photos, it was very hard to get that 120 unless you know, the item was really like brand new condition, and we're talking 12 photos that, you know, if you pose it in a certain way, which is what I would do, to convey to the collector that if it can pose in this way, it is probably at this end of the price range. Now with 24 photos, those photos will definitely get you that price. And 2 photos of, like some sellers, right, they'll just do the front and back and don't even bother transforming it back because they either don't know how to or can't be bothered. They're gonna, if they were at the $20 mark before, they're gonna go down to 10. So having that increased visibility means that if you're hunting for items in the thrift, if you're trying to do retail arbitrage, if you're trying to, you know, buy a bulk lot and unearth that treasure, you're not going to get that top end value unless you provide that top end visibility. So the other thing is, when I look at how buying is such a visual process, there's so many platforms that rely on people scrolling just through photos to fall in love with an item. For some buyers, if they need, you know, more photos to fall in love with an item, because let's face it, it's getting to the point where scrolling to 12 photos doesn't feel enough, and you insist on not changing, you're gonna find that you can't quite get the hooks into your buyer with less photos. So that's a great example of where not being up to date can significantly leave you behind. Granted, only do more photos if it's necessary. I think about comic books, right? Like comic books, 12 photos isn't enough, but with 24 photos, you can take more angles, you know, 4 corners of the book lying down. You get where I'm going with this. So those are the examples of how to improve your listing quality. Listing quality leads to a certain feeling, a feeling of falling in love with an item, putting the hooks into the buyer, making the buyer buy with ease. Now the work. And this is the part where most people don't like. Whether you're at 20 listings or 6,000 listings where I'm at, it's gonna feel like a lot of work. Not because of the number of listings, but because it just feels like unnecessary work. Most of us, when we list, we want to list and be done with it. We want the item to sell and never touch it again. But when resellers get into reselling, one thing they forget is that, yes, let's say you have 20 items and you sell 2, you're replenishing 2. So number of listings stays the same, or more, hopefully, if you want to keep growing. When you have to revise the way you do something, especially if you've been compounding the same template over and over again, the change is to go across the board. So I'll do more detailed videos down the track of how to do, I guess, bulk editing. But get your head around the fact that when you have to make changes, like item specifics, add more photos, change photos, adjust pricing, make all your postage streamlined so that, you know, some of the old postage rates are not showing up next to the new postage rates, making your buyer go, why is this item the same as that item, but the shipping is, you know, 30 cents less for one versus the other? Like, to make all those changes, you have to do it across the board. And that takes time. For me, it takes like a whole week. And by a whole week, I mean, we'll get shipping done, we'll sit down, we'll do that. We'll get photos done, we'll go do that. Some weeks sometimes if it's too much, we'll just go no photos, no listing, just ship out the orders and go back to making changes. I can think of 2 examples off the top of my head of when we've had to do wholesale change. There was a time when we would take photos with the iPhone 11 Pro, and now we do it with the 13 Pro Max. And the light intake on the 11 Pro was significantly less than the 13 Pro Max, which is strange, but that was the leap between those 2 phones. And so we were scrolling through our listings, right? We would see difference in light exposure, and there was no consistency to it because eBay would, depending on how you sorted, if you sort by price, suddenly you'll see like a brighter thumbnail, a lighter thumbnail, brighter thumbnail, lighter thumbnail. And so then what we did was we just took all those 11 Pro photos items out and just retook them again so that it was consistent across the board. Once we did that, the scrolling experience was a lot smoother, and we adjusted our light settings so that we knew, I suppose, how to make it more consistent going forward. But that's an example of, like, it could be easy to go, yeah, you know what, those old items will eventually sell anyways. We'll just let it be. No, we want buyers to come to our store and feel like the whole shop is well lit. Because that's the same as if someone comes into a real physical store as a flickering light in the corner. It just doesn't feel right? It doesn't matter if some parts look great, but if some parts don't look great. Or if you go to a restaurant, right? Here's an example. You go to a restaurant, you sit at a clean table, but the table next to you is dirty. You still feel like you're not at a clean table. But if you go to a restaurant where all the tables are clean, that whole elevated experience makes you go on to stay here as long as possible. I might want to come here again, depending on how good the food is, right? Buyers move on. So work on listing quality, except that there is a lot of work in revising listings to bring the whole level of your listing quality up to scratch and being up to date, because eBay does it for the buyer to have a better experience. And whether you think that the buyer will or won't have a better experience, the fact is eBay is shaping buyer expectations constantly, and you need to be part of that. If you're not part of that, you will fall behind. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for following me on this journey so far. 4-part video. First time I've ever done it. It's been fun. It's been challenging. It's been, I'd say, quite satisfying, because it's definitely made me go a little bit deeper into the various aspects of what makes the theme. So I'll be posting about next week's theme in the community section. Be sure to check that out. And please engage with me there. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about. Like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.